Time now for Inside Utah Politics with Lindsay Ertz.
Check out that fancy new logo. Did you guys see that?
I love it.
Right? So sexy. All right, I love it. Welcome in to Inside Utah Politics today. We're glad you found us, whether it's on streaming news for Utah Plus or YouTube or anywhere else. If you're listening in podcast form, we're grateful you're here. Erin Ryder and Rusty Cannon are with us. Hi, guys.
Hello.
Hi.
How are we?
Good.
Rusty's lower third there says, not new to this, true to this.
I
Yes.
just noticed.
Care to explain what
I
that
didn't write it, but it sounds awesome.
That's all me. That's all me. I
all-
just sat down. I felt that one for Rusty today.
Producer Peter is the brains behind this operation.
It's true. He's not new to it. He's true to it.
That's right. It's my
Yes.
new line.
That
Stick
sounds
with
like
it.
it should be your rap name or something.
And no diminishing the fact that Erin says attorney.
Yeah.
That is
Just-
still very important.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just generic. All right, you guys. Before we dive in, just tell us who you are, what you do, so the people know your street cred.
So I'm Erin Ryder. I am an attorney. Thank you, Rusty, for pointing that out. Former Republican candidate and happy to be here.
Rusty Cannon, President and CEO of the Utah Credit Union Association. This is the time where we say these views are our own.
That is accurate, yes. And I thank you both for being here and not speaking on behalf of your organizations. It is good that we have two Republicans here today because you guys will be able to kind of weigh in on all this stuff and maybe even have differing perspectives, or maybe you'll agree. But let's start with the shooting in Minnesota. Obviously, we know over the weekend that a man was killed by federal agents. What's interesting right now is sort of the video that everyone is seeing seems to be contradicting the statements coming from the Trump administration in terms of what was he holding a phone? Did he brandish a weapon? He was just concealed carrying, but did he actually do anything with that weapon to warrant being shot? Some of the discussions happening right now, it's bringing up a Second Amendment question in terms of, we've heard some in the Trump administration even say he shouldn't have been carrying a loaded firearm at a protest or a demonstration of those things. So let's dive in, you guys. I do kind of have the broad question, though, of what should be done about this. I mean, is this something that somebody needs to face charges, both in this and the Renee Good situation?
Well, I think the first great statement I heard about this came from Senator Curtis. Maybe we'll show this on the screen. Our good senator talking about, do we have all the facts yet? I am reminded, as I saw this over the weekend, sort of breaking, I am reminded of two things. When Trump was shot in the ear and also the Charlie Kirk shooting, I remember vividly videos coming out within minutes of, in fact, I remember with the Trump shooting, someone being, pulled down the stairs in the stands saying, hey, they got him. It turned out to be a victim. And then in the Charlie Kirk shooting, we remember someone else saying they had done the shooting and were being taken off by police, and you had, posts about that within minutes, none of which turned out to be true. And so I think it's important to make sure that everybody's looking at the right evidence and make sure we, as he says, have all the facts before jumping to conclusion.
But I do think, to your point, Rusty, I think there should be an investigation, right?
Yes.
We can't have any government agency has a responsibility to act responsibly when discharging their duties. And an agency like the one that we're dealing with here, I mean, come on, with everything that's going on in the country, all of the things going on with ICE, with the Department of Homeland Security, everything that's happening right now, to have any misstep is a huge, huge issue. And so any chance that this wasn't handled correctly, they should be all over that and looking into it and owning that responsibility from the get-go.
Well, whenever there's sorry, Rusty, I don't mean to interrupt
go
you
ahead.
here. I'll totally let you make your point. But whenever there's a officer-involved critical incident, they call it here locally, right? That officer is put on leave. An outside agency comes in and investigates that. That doesn't seem to be a protocol we have in place for ICE.
No, I think they do, at this point, deserve pretty widespread criticism of how DHS has handled this.
Yeah.
I did see, for example, I saw a picture fairly quickly, apparently put up by them, of a gun on a seat with a couple of clips saying, here's the weapon that he had. He was ready to do all kinds of damage, those kinds of things. That was, I think, if not factual, but also fairly inflated. I didn't understand where that was coming from. If that's the kind of reaction that is going to come out from this government agency at a time like this, that totally erodes trust with them on their part. I think they have, at least at this point, fumbled this completely. As tragic as this is, you're both right. It's being handled terribly. There's no justification for how they're handling it, because in order to gain trust, you want all of this, the facts to come out slowly and deliberately, and everybody stay calm until we have that. There was immediate reaction from the agency already of like, well, here's the justification, right? When it doesn't appear to be factual at this point.
And the first thing they'll say, too, is it appears the officer, fearing for his life, fired defensive shots, right? And so they've said that both with the Renee Good situation and now with this latest shooting. So it's interesting to me, appearing to give a defense, right, for the shooting.
I think also to add to this, DHS has been advertising pretty openly that, hey, come work for ICE and we'll give you this money. And they've been advertising to try to get people to come and to work for ICE and come be ICE agents. And there's this huge push from the administration to get a handle on immigration and to crack down on, all these things on immigration. That's great to a certain extent. But if you're going to do that, we are also very sensitive as Americans to the responsibility of those agencies to act appropriately in these circumstances. And if they have any sort of new officers or, when the temperature's already high on this, I mean, you have to be ready to handle any instance at all. And boy, it's just, again, I think they have really fumbled this.
I want to talk about some of our local delegation responses. We saw Senator John Curtis, I think you both made this point earlier, come out and call for a, quote, transparent, independent investigation into the Minnesota shooting. He also explicitly said, I disagree with Secretary Noem's premature DHS response, again, his words, which came before all the facts were known and weakened confidence. He says he'll be working with a bipartisan group of senators to demand real oversight and transparency. Including calls from Rand Paul for leaders of these operations to testify so trust can be restored and justice restored, or justice served, rather. What do you guys make of Senator Curtis's comments?
I think he's spot on. I just still can't understand why they react the way they do. The DHS and Secretary Noem at this point are taking an issue that should be quite popular, even on a bipartisan basis, of rooting out criminal illegal aliens and those kinds of things is generally popularly supported, and instead you're turning it on its head and making it deeply unpopular by doing all kinds of things that are inexplicable. And this is tragic. We have to wait for all the facts to come out, but just the way that they've been behaving lately and going about it, I think there's well documented proof that just this isn't going as what people would expect, and this certainly does not help.
Yeah, I mean, to Rusty's point, I do think this is a bipartisan issue to say, yeah, we don't want people who are here illegally who are engaging in violent criminal acts.
Yeah.
So let's address that. That's a good thing. We should all be able to get behind that. But how DHS goes about that also matters, and that seems to be the piece that's missing from this. And to see Secretary Noem and the Trump administration just entrench and to say, no, everything was fine. We did everything perfectly. Don't come after us. It's not the right way to do this. You have to be able to acknowledge when things needed to be addressed and when things needed to be handled a different way. And at the very least, they should say, we are looking into this. We are doing an investigation. We will fully cooperate with local authorities, et cetera, to make sure that we are doing what's in the best interest of the American people. And they're not saying that.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, on the flip side, it doesn't help as well that the temperature has been raised equally on both sides to where encouragement to demonstrate, to show up, and that's perfectly fine. You can demonstrate and all of that. But when there's, pretty well documented agitation and physical pushback, so to speak, on what these agents are doing, there's a very, very fine line between obstruction and protesting. And there's all kinds of things that come into play here where I think this could very well happen again, right? If temperatures don't cool on both sides, you're going to continue to have this problem where, law enforcement is there with weapons trying to do their job. You have others showing up and forcefully pushing back. It's a bit of a powder keg, and I don't see it improving at this point.
I just came from meetings with both Senate and House leaders on Utah's Capitol Hill, and we talked to both the Speaker and the President about what happened in Minnesota. And the President in particular really tried to turn the temperature down. He just said, anything I say is going to, inflame this. I want to bring the temperature down. The House Speaker sort of talked more about he didn't have all the facts. He was confused by the video he saw and then the message from the administration, sort of making that point that we saw earlier. But I found it interesting that, that they were trying to kind of bring the temperature down. And then the House Speaker also said he would 100% support the governor if these things escalated and he were to have to call in the National Guard. That's something he was very adamant that he would support. So just trying to bring down the temperature a little bit on Utah's Capitol Hill, it appears. All right, let's move on to another ICE issue that is impacting Utah. There were a lot of rumors that bubbled up last week that an ICE detention facility was coming to Salt Lake's west side. You saw Democratic leaders in Salt Lake City and Salt Lake County speak out forcefully against that. Well, now the owners, or at least partial owners and investors of that facility have come out to say, we have no plans to sell to the federal government. Guys, do you think, or how likely, I should say, do you think it is that a detention facility will come to Utah, given the fact that Bloomberg reports that the Trump administration is looking for these large-scale facilities to put detention facilities?
This one's kind of surprised me. Is there any shred of evidence that this is actually maybe going to happen at this location? Like, I'm not aware of any. Like, was this just simply a rumor that has gotten so rampant?
Yeah, Peter,
Peter, is there something out there?
To that a little bit, because I kind of spearheaded some of our research on this. So the address that originally came out, that kind of west side warehouse location, was put out by protesters about 2 weeks ago based on what was purported to be a leaked DHS document listing facilities or locations that they had considered putting some sort of ICE detention center. It listed locations at different areas around the country. Salt Lake was on that list. That address was on that list. Now, that kind of came in this sort of tapestry of facts we had over the last, 3 to 6 months, where you had some national media reporting. I believe CNN and the Washington Post, I think, put out articles that were like, these are places that DHS is targeting for a facility, and Utah kind of consistently came up in those conversations.
Interesting.
So then you had protests at the location of the purported planned facility, and then you actually had some protests at the office building of this partial owner that's now speaking out. And basically disputing long-term plans here. Another thing people pointed to was that sometime early 2025, you had Governor Cox saying ICE could build a facility somewhere in Utah. Mm-hmm. So it's nothing concrete, but that's kind of how the protests coalesced. Once there were protests, you had city and county leaders weighing in. And that's what has kind of forced the issue to this point where the property owner decided to weigh in.
Well, it's well spoken. So if that document is correct, then maybe it's founded.
I think that this is going to be one that might be determined, at least in part, by public opinion, right? If to Rusty's earlier point, if we continue to have issues like the ones we've seen recently in Minnesota or other issues around the country, popular opinion may get to the point where it is just deeply, deeply unpopular to build any sort of ICE detention facility, even in a state that would otherwise probably be relatively friendly to what the Trump administration is trying to do, which I have to think is why Utah's on that list, because they're probably looking for states that would be friendly to this.
Well, and we're along the I-15 corridor, right? And I think right now folks have to go to Vegas. Yeah.
Right? Yeah, it's a good place for them to at least consider putting one. But if we're getting to a point where we keep having incidents like this, the support that was there is going to very quickly erode, and that could have the effect of also eroding public interest in building something like this.
Yeah, just because it's not coming to this facility doesn't mean it's not coming at all. There are other warehouses in Salt Lake County, Salt Lake City, in
Just
Utah,
a few.
right?
Yeah.
We got plenty of warehouses, but again, that's pure speculation. But at least for now, the owners of this facility say they're not selling to the federal government, and that kind of signals to us that at least there was consideration to sell to the federal government, right? Whether or not they actually did, whether that sale closed, whether they knew that the federal government was the buyer. We don't have any of that information, but at this point they're saying we are not selling to the federal government. So That's what we know at this point.
That's right.
Okay, let's dive into something that's happening at the Utah legislature before we leave today. And that is a bill that piqued my interest over the U of U's private equity deal. So if you don't know anything about this, basically the U has locked arms with a private equity firm to help raise money for their athletics program. And it's sort of the wild, wild west of NIL situations and sort of how is this all going to work. It appears from local reporting that the private equity deal is going to be inked in the next few weeks, but a lawmaker is running a bill to say that the legislature should have oversight on that. Do you guys agree with that notion?
Well, as a diehard U of U football fan, this is a tough one for me to talk about. And I'm a big fan of our new coach and outgoing coach and all. But in all seriousness, everybody needs to remember that the University of Utah and other schools in Utah are taxpayer supported, taxpayer funded. In fact, that is the majority of their funding versus tuition most of the time. And so there is a valid argument to be made for lawmakers wanting to weigh in on something to this effect, right? You could make an argument that it might be a good idea.
Yeah, and I hear that point. Let me just push back there. They can invest their own money, though. No, I mean, they have endowments.
Yeah,
right?
no, they can. You could do it private, but money is fungible, right? Meaning, so if there's that bucket of money coming in from private sources that takes care of this, it frees up money that would be, so to speak, taxpayer money, or vice versa. It's kind of the same bucket, but that's the point that I was trying to make. Is that there are many fingers in the pie of taxpayers when it comes to higher education in Utah and in most states, and so it should matter to people.
Well, and this is the first deal of its kind, right? We haven't seen this, I think, anywhere else in the country at the collegiate level. Yeah. So you have this very interesting dynamic of a state-run institution that is trying to privatize a revenue, I can't speak today, guys. Thanks. A revenue source for the university. So where does that go? Should lawmakers? I think it's appropriate for them to be having the conversation. The conversation may end up being moot, but I think it's appropriate for them to have the conversation. What I find very funny about the whole thing is that the University of Utah didn't expect that the legislature would push back on this or would have an opinion on it, and in which case I just wonder who advised them on that.
Right.
On that viewpoint.
You guys know they're going to come in hot on this one, right?
Yes, they're absolutely involved in it. Every year during the legislative session, for the most part, our colleges, universities are up on the Hill asking for money, whether it's for buildings or just general funding. They have to make presentations every session. I was a little surprised to hear that too, of like, wait, you guys care? Oh yeah, we absolutely do care. So.
Well, and I mean, the legislature over the last couple of years, there have been a number of bills that have been run around how higher education operates in Utah, the budget, all sorts of things. This whole process that we went through a year ago about which degrees we should continue to offer at universities. So to have a university take a massive portion of its revenue and just hand it over to a private equity firm, I mean, come on, like the legislature's going to at least want to take a look at that.
And that process that Erin, you're speaking to, lawmakers see it as so successful, they're now requiring it of all the other agencies. You may know this, Erin, because you moonlight as an HOA director.
I moonlight for the government.
You moonlight for the state government. But I just got out of a meeting with House Speaker Schultz where he said, it's an exercise in everybody bring to us 5% of your budget that you could cut. And he actually said he was disappointed in public education for the way they just said, okay, we'll cut 5% across the board. That's not what he meant. He said when he proposed this, he wants a targeted look at all your budgets to see what's working and what's not. And I think for education, I'm getting off topic a little bit, but for education, they're saying, how are you going to make us choose between suicide prevention and after school programs? Like that's like pitting two good things against each other, right? So they just sort of took a high level cut 5% from everybody sort of approach. But the speaker's sort of saying, no, get in there and drill down. And to the higher ed point, they really liked how it went with higher ed.
Yeah, he makes a great point. We'll cut it 5% across the board is a lazy answer, right? That's the easy way to get out of what it is that you're being asked to do. It'll be a very good exercise for any state agency to go back to zero, essentially, and look at your budget, rebuild it if you need to justify what is spent and what does need to have spending on. I think it's a very valid exercise. I think those that have gone through it, the higher education, it had to do more with curriculum over the last few years, where they forced them to look at, which curriculum is really producing results and all. I bet you if you asked most of them, they would say that was a worthwhile exercise. And so apply that same light on your budget should be a worthwhile exercise. And to do something as lazy as say, well, we'll just cut 5 across the board, I think is disingenuous, and I think he's justified in calling it out.
How's Commerce handling this there, Erin?
I will let Commerce speak to that. But
Is
there are
HOA
many discussions.
having budget cuts?
Our budget was pretty low to begin with, so
Okay.
there's not a whole lot you can cut from our budget.
Your $300,000 ongoing is
Right.
fine.
Yeah.
Do you guys have any bills in our final minute here that you're watching that you want to hit real fast?
Well, thankfully, a lot of the social bills that get quite controversial are not having to do with my day job. So I don't know about you, Erin, but I gladly, let the temperature cool and work on things that are, frankly, fairly boring. That occupy my time. So I get to skirt that issue.
The credit union lobbyists are coming in hot.
It's boring.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is my first session as an active participant in the legislative session. And so there are bills. I work for the State Department of Commerce. I run their HOA ombudsman office. And there are some bills that will directly impact our office and that sort of impact the world of HOAs. So we've been involved in those conversations and those discussions, and we'll see where they go.
Do we need tighter HOA rules or we need more flexibility?
What we're going for this year is clarification and better drafting on a few things.
Okay.
So
All
cleanup
right.
bills.
Cleanup
mostly.
bills.
Yep.
We do cleanup bills. Those are good. All right, you guys. Erin Ryder, Rusty Cannon, thanks for your insights today.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
I know, we so appreciate it. I love having the conversations. As always, look for Inside Utah Politics Sunday at 8 a.m. and 4 p.m. I have half the show booked this week. Democrat Andrew Stoddard will join us. He was wearing a kilt on Capitol Hill today, and it was all the talk. It was all the talk.
That's not the first time he's done that.
I know. It
Well,
was.
and Lindsay, you said he'd explain why he's wearing it on the show. Will he be wearing it on the show?
I guess I'll have to ask him.
I need to know these things as a producer.
Yeah, yeah. Well, at the very least, there's a photo on my Twitter feed if you care to
check
see.
out Lindsay's Twitter.
And as he was walking into the House chambers, this speaker just walks up and yells, "Men should not be wearing skirts." It was all in jest, but it was a little bit like, too soon. So, little
that's
fun
great.
on Utah's Capitol Hill today. It's good they have that relationship. It is good. All right. Thank you for joining this week. We will see you next time.